Welcome back, and today my guest is Howard Franks from Camera Electronics. Howard, we were talking over the break about business challenges.
Absolutely.
So, and you enlightened me with a supplier story?
A good friend of ours, Malcolm Kennedy from Melbourne, I remember going into his office a few years ago and being rather stressed about whatever the issue was at the time and not knowing how to deal with it and asking for his ear and advice about it. And he just looked me in the eye and said, if you don't have problems, you don't have a business. Be grateful for the problems because it means that you're still going.
Well, I think we all know that being in business, there's a constant flow of problems. So we're forever trying to solve them. So over the years, to bring us up to today, challenges that you've faced in the family business. Have there been a dozen, two? Can you count them on one hand? Are they just all different? Are they all the same? So,
look, there's all sorts of challenges. I mean, as you say, a family business, and we've discussed this before, John, finding the balance between the time with your family and the time in the business and where those boundaries are at time and you know how much work you take home and how much family you bring into work, and that can be certainly challenging. But I don't think of it necessarily as a big problem or a challenge. It's just part of what happens in having your own business and having a family business, and you just deal with it on a day-to-day basis and try and plan things out to make sure that you don't miss the important things with the family or the important things with the business.
What I'm hearing is it's more of an evolution as your family evolves, your wife and yourself. Obviously, when you came into the business, well, not obviously, I'm assuming you weren't married.
No, that's right.
Okay, so you've married in that time,
Yeah.
You've had kids in that time, and you've had to move with those times.
Oh, no, definitely. And both my wife and my brother's wife sometimes will make a comment that they feel like the business is the first wife and they're the second wife. And the kids manage pretty well, but at the same time, whilst we're very involved in the business all the time, we're the first ones to make all the kids' assemblies and all the special things at the school and the sporting events and help with those things. I mean, I've gone on more scout camps than I can count and helping with things like that. So, you know, also being in the family business, as well as the challenges and taking away, can also give you the freedom to come and go and be there at those other important things as well, which is great. The other exciting thing in recent times is as the kids are starting to grow a bit, they've all come and worked a little bit part-time in the business, which is a great part about being a family business. They can start working from you for a very young age, all on the books properly without having to wait till they're 14 or whatever the age limit is. So the 9, 10, 12 and 13-year-olds have all been working in the business a little bit part-time in the last year or so, which is great, and we've been finding jobs for them to do.
So that's not really a challenge, is it? Or is it a challenge to...
It is a challenge because you need to try and treat all the kids equally, even though their skill sets and their abilities are all different to each other and their personalities are different, and still to integrate them in and feel important. You know, other challenges, you know, when you talk about it, cash flow in small to medium businesses can often be a challenge. For us, stock supply is a massive challenge. We've had challenges in the last few years that you wouldn't expect to affect us here in Perth, but when there was the tsunami in Japan, which was a terrible thing and had so many effect on so many people, once you know you park the human side of it to the side, the main sensor factories where most of the photographic sensors were made were destroyed, and we had supply problems for a year and a half. And then you're trying to explain to people why they can't get their camera that they've got on order and things like that, and that's really challenging. Trying to keep up with new product releases in the market. We say now that it really doesn't matter in a lot of respects which camera you buy. The technology in all of them is so good now. It just depends on what feels right for you and what your exact needs are. But
so from a challenge point of view, you've got your kids coming into the business.
Yep.
I'm assuming they're your 4 you were talking about.
No, I've got 2 and my brother's got 3.
Okay.
Yep.
So 4 of the 5
Yep.
have
The other
spent
one's
time.
a little bit young.
Okay. And they get along, they know each other, they're happy to be in each other's company.
We only have one of them working with one of the managers at a time. So what we've tried to do to isolate it and avoid issues is they don't answer to either myself or my brother. They'll work directly with one of our management team. We've got 5 people in our management team that do a great job through the business. And so they'll work a 3-hour shift at a time working directly with one of the management team.
Wonderful, great clarity in that, organising that. I'm interested about the challenge when your dad stepped away from the business. Did he step away and give you time to learn the roles with your brother? Or was it a bit more of an event where he stepped back?
Yes and no. It's sorry, I'm going to give a longer answer on that one. Dad had a lot of health problems from the mid-90s, and through that he couldn't work the way he'd wanted to have been accustomed to prior to that. So his manager at the time, Dominic, who then left for some time to run his own business and then came back 5 or 6 years ago, he took over and ran the business like it was his own, and Saul worked directly under him, and I worked directly under Ernest, who was our head technician, who was with us for a number of years. So then we were still talking with Dad all the time, but he wasn't in the business on a daily basis, on and off for years with his health. By the time Dad officially retired in 2008, Saul and I had been pretty much running the business full-time for a couple of years prior to that already, and it happened gradually over time. At the same stage, we were both speaking to Dad every day, multiple times a day, consulting with him on all sorts of things. Like any parent or business owner and founder, sometimes he'd give the advice whether we wanted it or not, and other times we'd seek him out for the advice. And as I said, he was very experienced with what he did and had really good ideas.
Do you think he planned the transition to be as smooth? Because I'm hearing a smooth transition. You'd actually gone from being working for managers to taking on the management role and leading from the front.
That happened over about probably 7 or 8 years, so it wasn't. It was a very gradual thing. It was a slow handing over of responsibilities. Dad never wanted to let go, and still didn't really all the way to the end. It took him a long time to come to peace with that because it probably wasn't on his terms due to health. At the same time, Dad used to love challenging us. We used to try and divide and conquer with my brother all the time, and try and crack us and see if he could get us to go against each other, which we think he did deliberately to garner our strength and our resolve together as a unit. And look, we've noticed that in family business, which I'm sure you have in your businesses, that people will try and go to one person in the family, get an answer they don't like, so they'll go to another one and try and get a different answer. And we just try and manage that and speak with each other and communicate well. So, did Dad plan it that way? I'm not sure, but he certainly groomed a toughness into us and a resolve to succeed to the best we can and always have each other's back.
There was no, I'm making a statement, but it's more of a question. Did you ever say to your dad, yes, I want to step up and run the business one day? Did Saul have that conversation? Yes, Dad, I want to stay in the business and run it one day. I want to do it with Howard. The two of us are going to run it together.
I think that probably just evolved over the years. I don't recall either of us ever actually saying that. I mean, there was times that all of us were frustrated, as happens when you're young, and going through those times where we said, no, I've had enough of this, and go to throw in the towel and walk away, and then, come back and say, oh, look, sorry, I've calmed down a bit now. And probably times the other way where Dad said, maybe you should go away, maybe this isn't for you and you can't hack it. But look, neither of us ever said, yes, we want to run it and we want to be the top dog or anything like that. I think it just evolved over time and happened that way.
So from a challenge point of view, the challenges were not external challenges, they were more internal. Your father trying to play a game of pushing your relationship boundaries.
Yep.
And the normal day-to-day business challenges of the cash flow that you talk about.
Yeah. Look, we had some big challenges with that for some times, and as we were going through growth and expansion, also we were mentioning on the break earlier about transitioning through different premises in the business. In the mid-2000s, we moved from our old premises to our existing one, and the move ended up taking 6 months longer than it was meant to, and then the previous property took a year longer to sell than it was meant to, and that was a really hard 18 months from that point of view. And yeah, Saul and I always remember that and always promise ourselves not to get back in that position. That was really challenging. Probably the other really big challenge that Saul and I had was being in our mid-20s to late 20s and transitioning from being the young sons of the boss to being bosses ourselves of people, and some of them had been working there a long time, and having to garner that respect through example and earning it from people rather than just being seen as Ron's kids. And look, that was pretty tough and challenging at times. And it's funny now, that doesn't happen. People come in and they only know us as the boss from the start, but people that had known us previously, that was probably close to a 10-year transition for us, which was really challenging at times. Dad still used to refer us to people as, oh, this is my kids, or that's my young son, or my number 2 son, or something like that. And you know, when you're in a serious business meeting with somebody and you're a director of the business and you've been working there 10 or 12 years and that's how you're being introduced, we found it a bit undermining at times. And Dad was from a different generation to us, and that was never his intention. And we used to have to then pull him aside afterwards and say, Dad, could you please try not refer to us like that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've got a fair idea of some of the challenges that you've faced.
Sure.
Thanks for that.
No problem.
We'll take another break and we'll come back talking about where you want to be in the future.
Absolutely.
See you soon.